And let's see who we're doing today. 3. Person number 3 is Henry Matteson. Now, I've introduced John Matteson, who I regularly refer to as just Matteson. Henry is actually his father. The thing with Henry is that one of the main villains of Tall Tales is actually his father. That's Jeremiah Matteson. I haven't done a video on him yet. I will at some point. Now, he didn't really grow up having Jeremiah in his life. Now, I'll get to this at a later video when I talk about Jeremiah. But the basic of it is he watched Jeremiah kill somebody and then vanish and never return. And so he grew up kind of knowing that there was something really wrong and really weird about Jeremiah, and having access to an entire collection, an entire little library of books and stuff that had been collected about the supernatural. And so he was able to start researching these things and seeing how to actually deal with people with supernatural powers like Jeremiah. This became a major part of his personality. In fact, most of what you know of him throughout the series comes from the fact that he studied magic, he studied the paranormal. He is considered one of the leading academics within the realm of people who deal with the supernatural on a regular basis. Around the world, he actually gets called in. The first time you meet him is that he gets called in to Europe to help Benedict with something. But it's not purely academic. He also, as you learn more about his backstory, he also was actively fighting Jeremiah. And how he did so is kind of a mystery. Like, you see him use a gun a couple times, but you never really see whether he actually had the ability to use magic or if he was just very knowledgeable about magic. He doesn't really ever do anything within the context of the story to clarify that. He also recognized what John was from a very early age. He recognized that he was immune to magic, that he was someone who could break magic, and he recognized what he was as an anchor and began training him specifically to be a weapon to use against Jeremiah. And this is a big part of what defines Matteson, as you see throughout the story later on, is that his childhood was very built around this idea that he was being groomed for a combat that would eventually happen where he would be able to stand up to and ultimately kill a supernatural being who happens to be his grandfather. And that type of thing messes you up. And so there's a lot of questions that come up about like how good of a father Henry actually was, and I think that that's a fair question to ask. The story itself, as with most other things, just kind of shows you things and then lets you decide. Now, Alice vocalizes that she doesn't think that he was a good father. Benedict has some opinions about him as like a friend and maybe as a father and stuff like that. And so various people do express opinions about him, but the story, once again, just kind of says, here's the things he did, here's the things he says, and it lets you deal with those as you wish. The main things that you know about him from the story are that he is actively involved in the supernatural, that he has the knowledge to be able to deal with that realm pretty well, that he is actively involved in teaching Matteson how to be someone who can fight against the supernatural, which informs a lot of who Matteson is, that he's very secretive. This is a thing that's raised a number of times. A number of characters complain about the fact that Henry really just does not explain things to them about himself. He does not make himself very vulnerable or even really emotionally available, and that this actually leads to part of the reason why Matteson grows up without a mother in the picture. She's gone. She's not dead. She left because she couldn't put up with Henry anymore. But once again, he grew up in a situation where his father used magic to murder someone in front of his eyes while he was a child, and then left him and his mother. And so his mother was very bitter about that, very angry about that, and so he was raised in this kind of environment as well. And so a lot of this type of stuff makes sense. You kind of see where this comes from and how this kind of generational trauma can build over time, and how the things that Jeremiah decides to do end up informing not only Matteson, but later on in the story, Matteson's children. And it just continues on. I encourage you to check out more of his story. You can find it here at talltalesuf.com. Thank you. Enjoy.